go, we're almost there. We are hoping for much lushness on the edge of the pan to hopefully hide a froggy or three. Yeah, the lushness has not arrived yet. It is still a barren pan, unfortunately. So, unlikely to have too many frog species, not so many places to hide. Sorry guys. So we also had one male lion off Gari Cut Line, between Gari Cut Line and Hyena Road this morning. He lost him in the drainage line. I'm heading back to that area to try to relocate. Okay. I haven't been to the Buffelshoek waterfall in quite some time, so definitely a good spot to look. We did get an incredible bird species there this year, which I was very surprised to find. It was a female painted snipe. Well, hello, Michael. Michael was wondering how many types of parrot we get in Africa. Oh, Michael, quite a few. In the Sabi Sands, we normally only get one species, which is the brown-headed parrot. There is always a chance of a grey-headed parrot arriving, and in the yellowwood forests along the mountains, we get Cape parrots. So, and then in the dry savanna to the north, in the northern Kruger, following the Limpopo River up to Botswana, you get Mayer's parrots. And I'm just trying to remember now. Yes, we do have one other parrot species in southern Africa, and that is the Ruppel's parrot, which occurs in Namibia. Now up north, trying to remember all the parrot species. You've got orange-bellied parrots, African grey parrot, nyam parrot, Senegal parrot, red-fronted parrot. I don't have my big book of outside of southern Africa with me today, but I'd say there's probably between 10 and 15 species of parrots indigenous to Africa. I'm trying to remember now. I've been fortunate enough to see quite a few of them traveling and living up Africa in different places. Okay, we're going to head towards Buffelshoek Waterhole. While we do that, let's go see what Commander Bond is up to on his 2 feet.
We have got what I think is called a broad-bordered grass yellow, except it doesn't seem to have a border. Well, it hasn't opened its wings for us. It is a butterfly, of course. And so that's what I think it is, and I think if it opens its wings there will be a slight border. Anyway, the butterfly is deeply confusing, of course, not like the birds. They don't all look exactly the same as each other in the same species. They have various different colour morphs, and so I think that's what that is. And it's often that you find those beautiful butterflies sitting on elephant dung. For some reason they like to sit there, perhaps for the moisture that comes with elephant dung. Not a great deal of flying around, very sluggish flight from the butterflies today, of course, because it's cold, and that makes it difficult for them to fly. Also, a number of sweat bees, flies, walking around or sitting on my legs at the moment. That's quite painful. Oh, look at what we have here, Brian. We have the burrow of Opisthythelmus glabifrons, or the burrowing scorpion. That's where that thing lives, probably in there. And we know, of course, many of you will have seen that they eat millipedes, and then they turf out the exoskeleton. That's what's happened there. But also, this one seems to be a fan of escargot, a snail. And that doesn't seem to be the one that Steph is so... Steph is slightly obsessed with this exotic snail here called, I think it's called a single-striped snail or something like that, or banded snail. This one seems to be an indigenous species, but unfortunately it met its end at the pincers and pedipalps of the burrowing scorpion that lives in this hole. That's quite nice. I've never seen that before. We often find, of course, the shells of the millipede there, but not so much the shells of snails. I wonder how he ate it. Perhaps with some garlic. I suppose it depends whether he's a French scorpion or not. On we go. Now we've come down here. We don't know where Hosana and Shongile are at the moment. We're kind of going into a spot between the areas where Karula was last seen, off down to where I'm pointing there, and between where Hosana was last seen, quite a long way to the south of where we are now. We're kind of going into the middle of that area, seeing if we can't find some tracks. Now, Liz, you're wondering if we see any swallowtail butterflies here. Yes, we do see swallowtails. We see citrus swallowtails, emperor swallowtails. What's the other one with the blue? It's a beautiful coloured thing. I think they actually call it a green swallowtail. So we get a number of different swallowtail butterflies that we see here, yes. Here are some mushrooms. I'll just pick one up for you, Brian. Brian, of course, is well, he's not a small lad, and therefore it's easier if I pick things up rather than he has to lie down. There we are. And there have been a great profusion of these mushrooms coming out on the rotting and dead wood. And we were looking at some under the microscope in the tent the other day, and it really is quite astounding looking at the filaments of these fungi. Very nice. Beautiful. This one seems to already have released its spores, and if I turn it all the way over, you can see the spores are well, I suppose the equivalent of a fungus seed, and they would have come out from under those flaps underneath there and blown off on the wind and settled on some other wood, where they'll have to wait for this kind of rotting effect to take effect once there's been a bit more rain. Nice. Would you like to eat this, Brian?
No, thank you.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I think that's probably wise. All right, on we go. This time of the year is the best, I think, for doing a bushwalk. Well, from a safety point of view, you've got to be quite careful because, of course, the bush is a lot thicker. But just about everywhere you look, every little patch of ground is almost an ecosystem unto itself. And every time I sit down and pick something up or try and show something, there are always 3 or 4 different things in one spot. You can be looking at a bush like this. You'll find a scorpion nest underneath it. You'll find a whole lot of ants climbing up and down the trunk of the tree. You'll find some mantises specially designed to eat those ants in that specific tree, and all sorts of other things like that. Funguses and bits and bobs. Snakes perhaps underneath branches. You must be careful of those. You don't want to be picked by a snake. And a strange sort of cool day persists, and a day like this, of course, flowers such as this wild sesame, well, they don't open really because they like to follow the sun. Beautiful colour. That is the wild sesame. Right, let's carry on. RT, you want to see a Sisyphus? Well, RT, if there's one thing that I can almost guarantee you in the next, say, I don't know, minute or so, I'm pretty sure I can find you a Sisyphus. Watch, this will be the only Sisyphus-free patch of land there is on this land. A Sisyphus, for those of you who don't know, is a buffalo thorn. There's one. Let's come over here, Brian. A buffalo thorn has some very nasty thorns on it. One hooked, one pointed backwards. Very good eating if you happen to be something that likes to eat vegetation out here. Not so good if you happen to get caught in it. Here it is here. Now the elephants have destroyed this one. They have been very pleased to eat it, no doubt. So this is a Ziziphus. Artie, anything specific about the Ziziphus you wanted to see? You can see the hooked and straight thorns there. And there are lots of legends about what this tree is used for and how it's used, and many of which I've kind of shared with you already, and which I'm happy to share with you again, but I don't want to bore you to death, of course. I quite like the one with the hooked thorn and the straight thorn. The straight thorn indicating that you need to always look forward to your future, with the smaller and hooked thorn indicating that one must never forget one's past, Brian. It's a very pleasant tasting leaf, I must say. So I think I'm going to have a small breakfast here, and Brent has found Djuma's worst parents. Let's go and have a look at them.
That is very funny. James just said found Djuma's worst parents. I was thinking about, how did they lose 11 or 12 little goslings, the geese of Buffelshoek Dam? I was wondering, maybe they're hidden in the bush, but I don't think so. I think they'd be out in the open with the adults if they were still alive. Oh dear. Sorry if you hear some of that, my mic has slipped out of my hat. It should be back in shortly. There we go. So not much else happening at the Buffelshoek waterhole, just the geese drinking. And I was hoping that male lion might have popped out this far, but alas, not yet. And I was also hoping for a little bit of a roar, but no such luck. I am going to head towards Hyena Road. Baby has popped out there. If nothing, we'll go check in the block again. Now, let's go to Tayla with something beginning with a T.
We've got a tortoise hiding in the long grass under a small shrub, and I don't know if you can see it. Oh, there we go, now you can. And it is a very small hinge-back tortoise. Hello, little guy. It was on the road and didn't stick out on the road for too long. Perhaps it felt a little bit vulnerable out here. And, well, if I was the size of this little guy, I'd probably be a little bit nervous as well. Because something like an eagle, even a crow, would find this to be a tasty meal. And because it is so small, it's not going to be very heavy, and those birds would be able to pick it up and take it up to the quite high up in the sky and then drop it and hope that it would crack open. Also, it's good to hide away, especially if there are any southern ground hornbills around, because it's one of their favorite meals, is to crack open the top of the shell and feed on a lovely tortoise treat. But luckily for this little one, it's hiding away. It looks very much like a rock at the moment. And, well, I'm actually surprised to see a tortoise moving around today, because it's quite chilly, and normally they don't move in temperatures that are too cool. But if you're hungry, maybe that's what's enticed this animal to come out, and maybe it's looking for something to eat, some grass, some flowers, maybe even a bug or two. I'm not sure. They sometimes will eat little bugs as well to get a bit of protein. But bye-bye, little tortoise, hiding away from us. We'll catch... Oh, actually, I'm going to jump out because I found something and be very sneaky very quickly. Oh, it's such a long way down. I need to grow longer legs. I'm not going to bother the tortoise, but I've got a flower. I haven't seen these in such a long time. Have a look here. Isn't this beautiful? Now, this is known. I don't know if anybody... Actually, let's do a quiz. I'm going to change my mind. I'm actually going to plug myself back in. What is this flower? You must have seen it before. I'm sure James and Brent and Jamie have all showed you this before, but I'm not going to tell you just yet. So send in your answers to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can send in your answers at questions@WildEarthTV. And I'm not going to spoil the surprise. We'll keep it with us. Let's try and get back in now. Have to go unplugged so I can piston turn. I need to be very careful that I don't release something that I want to show you in there. Ta-da! I'm back in again. Right. Okay, so remember, we want to find out what that flower is. Well, I know what it is, and I'm sure that most of you have known what it is. It's a lovely flower to know about if you're out in the bush. So send those questions through to, like I said, #SafariLive or questions@WildEarthTV. And it'd be nice to know. It's a very easy one to identify. And I think that you will all probably get it very, very quickly. Now we're just about to leave Arathusa. We're about to jump back onto Gowrie Main. David, what are our plans from here? We're unsure of what we should do. Let's maybe drive down Gowrie Main. I don't know if Brent has come down this way. Let's have a little squiz around here. And well, hopefully we'll see maybe somebody's come into the property that we don't know about, some animal of some type. We'll keep an eye out for a couple of tracks. And anything really. Been nice to get some baby impala this morning. I love to see them. I actually like to be able to sit and watch them on a big open plain. Watch them play. And well done to Anna Marie and Fran, who have got the flower quiz correct. You were spot on this morning and so quick, so thank you for your hasty responses. They guessed correctly and said a blue commelinea, or it's another name for it is a wandering dew. You're quite correct, and we'll pull off the road over here and then I'll show you. It's one of my favorite flowers out here in the bush, and the reason for this is because I suffer severely from hay fever and all types of allergies and things, and I tend to get itchy eyes quite often. It's quite frustrating. So there's something quite wonderful about this flower. Let's pick it up again. And I'm sure, and if you've started watching, you must keep an eye out for this one. It's really nice. So if you have a look, actually, Dave, let me put it down here so I can keep still. I forgot. So if you have a look over here, can you see there's a bit of a bulge in the flower? I'm going to turn it sideways so you can sort of see that? Move that back. A little bit of a bulge. Now what you can do is if you open that, watch as I even squeeze it. You should see up over here something coming out. Let me get that back so I can also see what I'm doing. Can you see that little drop of water starting to come out? Rah! You see that? There it is. Now that is incredible. This stuff inside this little flower, it is mainly water, but it has got antibacterial properties in it. So what you can do, and I've done it before, I had an insect fire into my eye on one occasion, and the other time my eyes were just very, very itchy from all the pollen that was in the air. And I found a couple of these, and I very carefully, with the help of my tracker, we squeezed this little droplet into my eye. And it actually gave some nice relief. It was really, really nice. It sort of cooled them down and stopped them from being as sort of itchy as they were. So that's quite nice to do. You can put that in your eyes, you can put it in your ears if you have a bit of an infection and you're out here. But I just think they're just such a lovely flower to look at. They're really pretty. Let's see if I don't know if we'll be able to get the drop. Have a closer look. There isn't really too much sort of liquid in this one. Oh, and I've broken it. But we will keep it because it's a lovely little flower. But let's carry on and see what else the bush has got to offer us this morning. And I think that James has found something white and fluffy and looks a little bit like a marshmallow.
Indeed I have, everybody. It seems to be that there's some egg yolk, egg albumin being whipped up and hung from a tree cryptically. Isn't it strange, Brian? So strange. Obviously I'm talking utter nonsense. This is, in fact, well, I suppose it might be considered egg albumin in some shape, way or form. This is the nest of the foam nest frog. Now we very seldom actually get up to these things. I'm going to touch it. Are you ready, Brian? Do you think it'll swallow my hand?
Maybe.
Oh! Let me do it again. Oh! It's like plastic. It really is quite astoundingly like plastic. And in it, of course, the eggs of the foam nest frog, and shortly they will hatch and they will go plop down into the water here. Any luck? In fact, they might land over here on the mud and then flip into the water, where hopefully they will become new foam nest frogs. Of course, much like I was describing with the scorpions a little bit earlier, however, these are probably more R selectors than K selectors, which means that they make hundreds and hundreds of little tadpoles. Fewer than, say, 5% of them will make it to adulthood. But it's really quite a clever arrangement. This means the eggs are completely protected in there. They drop from here into the security of the water, into this murky water, where they'll probably have a much greater chance of surviving than if they didn't have that sort of security situation. Now, we're actually on the trail of some elephants at the moment, some fairly fresh elephant tracks that Herbert has found, and he is following just up ahead here. He thinks they may have seen us. Red, while we walk along here hoping to see some elephants, I've forgotten what an elephant looks like. Red, you say what happens to the nest after the tadpoles have hatched? Well, it just disintegrates eventually in the sun, but it does stay for a while after they've hatched, but eventually it just kind of degrades. It is very plasticky though, indeed. It's kind of, I mean, I would quite have liked to pull it off the tree and break it up, but obviously that wouldn't have been the most sensitive thing to do for the frogs. And so we didn't do that, but it's very plasticky indeed. Jennifer, you'd like to watch the frogs make the nest? Well, it's a very R-rated process. Of course, the female is there. There are 4 or 5 males trying to mate with her at the same time, and so it's probably quite R-rated and quite nerve-wracking to see. But as that's happening, of course, there is this huge kind of conflagration. Everybody has got fluids going all over the place, and through the process of the fighting of the males over the female and the mating, well, that nest is constructed, and into it will go the sperm and the eggs, and through that process the fertilization will take place, I think, within that nest. So yes, I would like to see it too. I've never seen it. I think it probably happens largely at night, you know. That's why frogs call at night. I think the chances of them being devoured by things are that much smaller if they're doing it at night rather than during the day. You can just see Herbie up front there, and we're hoping to just maybe get a glimpse of these elephants. He thinks maybe they've caught wind of us. I don't think they've caught wind, but they may have heard us coming, and that's possibly why they're moving in one line. They're not feeding as they go. So you can see a small herd of probably 4 or 5 walking in single file up towards this way. Now as we get into the thicker bush, we'll be a little bit more quiet. Herbert stopped and he's listening. He's listened, and now we'll carry on moving forward. And it's ideal for him to be up front there where he is, simply because I'm obviously waffling away, stopping, looking at bits and pieces, talking. He doesn't need to have my voice in his ear while he's looking for the tracks, because his ears are, of course, one of the most important parts of his body when it comes to looking for animals out here. So we're going to walk a little bit more slowly as we go through the slightly thicker bush, fully aware that elephants could be feeding now when they get into this thick stuff. But you can maybe see from where we're walking some impala up ahead. I heard one snort. This is very clearly a game path, so it's a path that elephants would find easy to walk along. It's clearer than just straight through. It's not a random path through the bush. We're going to go this way because there's some nasty ziziphus there that Brian will get caught in. Brian, of course, is about 7'5", and he's now caught on something that I didn't see. There we are. Thank you, Brian. Well done. Good job. Here we go. Let's carry on this way. And of course the inevitable question of danger comes up. Is it dangerous to track elephants? Well, It can be. If you behave like a yahoo, then it can certainly be dangerous. But if you're aware of how sensitive they are, well, then it's not particularly nerve-wracking. And if you keep your eyes and ears open. Sarah, you're wondering what the scariest thing to ever happen on bushwalk is. Well, for me, I think probably just coming across a buffalo very close by. I'm trying to think if I've had a particularly hairy bushwalk experience. Watch out here, Brian, you'll get caught for days. I mean, the closest I've been to a potentially dangerous animal on foot was with Brian when we were walking. This was before the days of Herbie, and we came across Karula, who was on a termite mound higher than this one, but she was, what, Brian, probably 3 or 4 meters away from us when we saw her, just watching us like this, as if to say, oh yeah, what do you guys want? So we just pretended not to see her, and we just walked away, and then we sat with her for a long time. So that was, I suppose, potentially a dangerous situation. But it's elephants and buffalo that are the things we look out for the most. It's buffalo who get a fright. They can be cantankerous when they get a fright. They're highly threatened. We haven't seen many buffalo around of late, so they would be things we watch out for. Elephant bulls in must, elephant cows with youngsters who are feeling threatened. So those are the things we watch out for. Again with Brian, I suppose this would be the scariest situation I've had on a bushwalk here. Was an elephant bull. No, in fact, sorry, there are 2 incidents. An elephant bull round about where we are now. We saw him, the wind changed, he smelt us, and then he decided to try and walk around the wind. So we immediately reorientated ourselves according to the wind so that he couldn't smell us, and we started walking, melting through the bush. It was with Steph on security at the time. And the elephant turned to try and find us in the wind, and so he started walking parallel with us, almost figuring out what we were trying to do. And once an elephant gets into a mood like that, where they're trying to find you, it can be quite scary, because they are obviously very good at hearing things, very good at smelling things, and they're like a bloodhound. I mean, if they find your tracks and they want to find you, they will find you, and you have to move very quickly out of the area. So that can be quite nerve-wracking. And then again, this was also with Brian. It was with you, with the buffalo phalanx that came at us. We were walking back towards camp. Walk was over. There were 6 buffalo bulls sitting at the pan, at the Djuma pan there. I mean, they must have been 100 meters from us. We came into the open along the dam wall and figured, well, they can see us, so they're not going to react to us because we're not trying to hide, we're not behaving like predators. Well, as we came down off the dam wall into the clearings, they formed a phalanx. It was almost like boys in a locker room kind of geeing each other up before a game, before they're going to play football or before they're going to play rugby or something like that, and they got each other really riled, and then they got into a phalanx of 6 abreast, and they just started walking like this with their heads up and snorting at us, and we suddenly found ourselves in the open with nowhere to go, because we just assumed that they would carry on eating and lying in the water. There was no reason for them to come towards us anyway, so we had to beat a very hasty retreat. But that was probably the most nervous I've been on a bushwalk out here. Alright, we're going to continue searching for the elephants, and as I was talking about bloodhounds, we have our own resident bloodhound, of course, with his spanky new haircut, Brent Smith, and he's managed to find himself, well, what he found himself earlier.
Well, we said we were going to come look for the authority. The authority is snoozing very nicely under a little guarri bush. Now, if we have a closer look at his face, I didn't get a good look earlier, but now, if we come straight through, you can have a look. You can see the blower wound, and then that is a new wound that looks to be infected as well. Now, I wonder if there's a connection to the old wound. I'm not sure. Probably not, though. So I was incorrect earlier this morning. This is now I've had a proper good look at it. I actually think best access is probably going to be from the middle of Hyena Road, and I'll guide you in. You should see some off-road tracks heading to the west. Okay, sorry about that. Someone's trying to find us. We are deep in the bush, far from roads, with Mr. Mfumo. And I heard him calling last night, through the night, but he's been quite quiet this morning. He hasn't given us a throaty roar. And of course, I'm not sure where the other members of the coalition are. They could be spread out all over the place. There's a tired kitty. Hello, Leopold. Now, Leopold's wondering who is the most dominant coalition in the Kruger Park at the moment. Wow, I'm not 100% sure. Kruger Park is 8.5 million acres, or the Greater Kruger. But there will be many dominant coalitions of lions, just depending on whereabouts you are exactly. So, northern Sabi Sands, the Birmingham Boys are dominant over most of it, and into the Kruger Park. Then in the western Sabi Sands, it's the Majinga lions. I think then in the southeastern Sabi Sands, it's the Sand River males. And then there's obviously multiple coalitions throughout the Kruger. But for us, our most dominant coalition is definitely the Birmingham Boys. Oh, and just to the north, the Salati males. Now there's a report of Skybed males, another big coalition coming down from the Timbavati. Avoca males is another coalition that might move into this area when they're a bit older. But they will have to contend with the authority and his brethren if they do come down this far. That massive forepaw, about the size of a side plate. Oh, you can see all the biting flies hanging about even in this cool weather, buzzing around him. It's wonderful to spend time with any of the big cats, even when they are having a snooze. Remember, hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV if you've got any questions. Now, if there's anyone new, this is a Birmingham male lion. He's part of a coalition of 4 that control the northeastern side of the Sabi Sands, and they are currently the lords over 3 different prides of lions: the Sticks, the Nkahumas, and the Torchwood Pride. They come from a farm called Birmingham in the Timbavati Game Reserve. That's where they get their name from. Now, Paul's asking, do we ever see white lions? Now, Paul, there's a possibility that these male lions might carry the white lion gene. The Timbavati Game Reserve is very famous for its white lions. It's one of the few places where that does have that recessive genetic. But for that to actually come through, you have to have both the male and female carrying that recessive gene to cause a double recessive to actually have white lions. So it seems to happen far more often in the Timbavati. In this area, not so much. I don't know. I've never heard of a white lion ever in the Sabi Sands, but in the Timbavati and in the Kruger around Singita Lebombo, there have been white lions in recent years, but I've never heard of one in the Sabi Sand. He looks like he's got his cat a day planned out. He's going to snooze under the bushes here. I'm pretty sure we're going to find him in the exact same position on the sunset safari. certain parts of Africa, lions are very much under threat. We're quite lucky in this area that they're not. MS Sky is wondering what the population of lions in the Kruger is. It's very difficult to get an exact population because you remember only about 2% of the Kruger is actually seen by people, and there are vast wilderness areas that the animals never see the people, apart from the odd anti-poaching patrol or scientific survey. I'd guess, and depending on what counts, there's anything from 1,000 to 2,000 lions in the greater Kruger. That is the estimate, and I know it's quite a wide estimate, but it is very difficult to be specific. As you must remember, a lot of those prides in the very rural areas will be very skittish. They'll run away from cars. They're not used to the vehicles like these lions here. And of course, different areas will have different densities based on the different prey availability. Krista in Oregon is wondering, why do the big cats let us get so close to them? Well, Krista, it's because we pose no threat to them. And these animals have grown up with vehicles. As long as you drive respectfully and carefully and do not push them or try chase them around, they are very, very relaxed. And a vehicle has only been around for 100 years or so they do not have an instinctive response to the vehicle. If you were to stand up, on the other hand, would not be a good idea. A lion would recognize the bipedal figure of man, the dominant diurnal predator, and either get aggressive or run away. And a vehicle also smells like diesel or petrol or oil, and so it doesn't really smell like anything edible or any threat. So as long as you keep your distance, or not keep your distance obviously, initially keep your distance and drive carefully and respectfully, you can get very close to these incredible animals. Okay, it sounds like someone is trying to get here. I can hear someone crashing through the bush. Now, while the authority sleeps underneath the Gwari bush, it seems like Commander Bond has got something that was probably caused by one of this creature's cousins, or if not itself.
Yes, indeed. I think it was caught by a lion, everybody, caught and eaten, and ended its many years of existence on planet Earth at the claws, teeth, and generally foul table manners of a pride of lions. This was a buffalo, as many of you can see, and you will notice that it has had its nose bitten off and eaten. That's the soft, bony bits there. I think lions quite like those. What I wanted to show you, though, mainly was its age. You can see that this fellow was not a youngster when he was eaten, and you know that because of this huge gap between his horns. There's a hole or a canal through the boss. This is the boss here on top, and the older the buffalo gets, the more that seems to split apart. He wasn't what one would describe as a buffalo of enormous width. He didn't have a hugely wide spacing between his horns, and if you happen to be part of the lunatic fringe that spends millions of dollars on buffalo because of the width of their horns, well, this chap would have been totally safe from you. That, amazingly enough, everybody, is how buffalo derive their value these days. So there are various breeding farms around the place where people can, they breed buffalo for the width of their horns, a biologically completely meaningless measurement, but in human being terms, because we are, well, sometimes pretty gormless about life, that we attach value to. This chap, not a very widespread, as they say. Good. Now, I don't think there's anything else to say about him, really, other than to look how far apart his bones have been spread, and his bones have been spread apart like this because probably there were hyenas that have come through. You'll find that most of the bones are missing. They would have been eaten by hyenas. The odd vertebra here and there. Porcupines will have come and grabbed them and taken them off in various directions. Badgers, and I suppose if you were to look all around here, you might eventually be able to find all of the vertebra. I doubt all of them would have been eaten. They're very hard. You might find the femur and the humerus, so the sort of forebones, the big, thick, tough top bones of both the limbs, so the humerus there and the femur from the back leg. You may find them around here, but otherwise everything over the course of time will have been eaten, and the rest will, believe it or not, eventually rot away. And you're wondering, I've lost the name now, it wasn't Thelema, was it? Why, Courtney, I thought your name was Thelema. That's really odd. Yeah. Bizarre, in fact. Courtney, you're wondering about the grass, and you say it looks very green. When is it going to bring the buffalo back? Courtney, I think it's not so much about the greenness of the grass here, but the greenness of it everywhere else. Now, the Sabi sand, we're just going to walk slowly through here as we go. The Sabi sand is made up of two main vegetation or geology types. One is granite, and we're sitting on granite here. The other is gabbro. Now, gabbro, for most of the year, is fairly unproductive from an animal point of view, because the grass gets very long very quickly, and once grass gets long and it's formed the stalks and the inflorescences live, it becomes fairly unnutritious. But the gabbros at this time of the year, when they have had rain, it's a black cotton soil, nutritious. Short grass on the gabbro plains is very nutritious, and so most of the buffalo and the zebra and the wildebeest and that sort of thing are up in the Mileti. That's Amber for you. I had a question from Amber earlier, I think. There we are, that's on a guarri bush. So we'll just help Brian to move past here. It's going to be a little tough getting through here, but we'll keep trying. So all the animals will be largely on those gabbro plains, and then once they're off the gabbro plain, once the gabbro starts to get the long grass, then you'll find there'll be a movement of animals up here. So that's one factor. The other factor is that we had lots of rain here to start with, comparatively very isolated rain here, no other rain in Sabi sand, and that concentrated all the animals here. Now there's been rain everywhere, so the animals have dispersed, coupled with the fact that this particular area has been slightly overgrazed as a result of the number of animals here. So that's the short answer to it, or the long answer to it, Courtney. The other gabbro plains you find are in the south of the Sabi sand, so I think that's where you're going to find most of the buffalo at the moment. And the gabbro plain is basically a lot more open than this, not much woodland, just going to be quiet. We're still on the elephant track, so Herbert is just wanting to have a little bit of time to listen to what's going on. So I will talk more quietly and we'll walk a little bit more slowly behind him. We don't want him to miss the cracking sound of an elephant feeding while I am waffling away about gabbro plains and such. Do we, Brian? No, we don't. So you can possibly hear the wind is blowing. And that does make it difficult to hear whatever it is we're tracking. And you can see we're moving through some pretty thick bush at the moment. And Herbie's just stopping. Every few steps he's stopping to listen. He reckons that these tracks are pretty fresh. Michael, you want to know about insect-eating plants. Do we have any in South Africa? Well, we have one, actually, and it lives in our camp, and it's a Venus flytrap bought by Connor Teagues, our drone commander. That's the only insect-eating plant that we have around here. But very few. I think there's one. There's one plant that makes I think it's called a funnel carrion plant or something like that. It doesn't grow here. And what it does is, unlike a Venus flytrap, it doesn't catch the fly. It makes a funnel into which sort of water sits, and water attracts insects. The insects go and try and drink the water. They can't get out of it again. And then the enzymes to digest that insect are in that water. And so I think we get those in South Africa somewhere. I remember learning about them at some stage, but I don't remember precisely which they were. Okay, wind is starting to blow, so we're going to keep going on these elephant tracks around the corner here and see if we can't find them in the next few minutes. Tayla has an update for you. I don't know what it is though.
if you look very carefully, you may be able to see the back, the white stripes, and of course the very big ears that are the obvious characteristics of some of the Nyala, not some Nyala. And there are a few of them around here. It looks like a very small family moving along the Mulwati, obviously having some breakfast. And there's a male somewhere too, but he seems to be hiding at the moment, so maybe he pops out. It blows my mind every single time I look at these incredible antelope and watch how dainty they are when they walk. It almost looks like they're tiptoeing around. And then I get the Pink Panther song in my head. No, that's the Addams Family. Sorry, I had the wrong song in my head there for a moment. And it comes the last one, dashing across the road. Kirsty, can you remember the tune to the Pink Panther? Or David, can you? Don't you think that goes with the? I think that's what those Nyala look like. Maybe wait. Let's see if we can see them again. Okay. Well, the Nyala have now disappeared, so we'll have to try it when we find a couple more Nyala to have a look at. But David, I thought, what about if we do a Christmas carol? What Christmas carol? Which one were we doing earlier? Was it Jingle Bells? Okay, we're going to whistle Jingle Bells. Are you ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. In a one-horse open sleigh. Hey! I think I need to start wearing my Christmas gear because I'm really getting in the festive spirit. The only thing, though, that we're missing is having the constant Christmas carols like what you hear when you go into the big malls. And I know when I was in the States at the end of November, beginning of December, they'd already started playing all the Christmas carols. So I'm glad it's not just South Africa that starts playing all that wonderful music so early in the year. So that was quite nice. But I hope you enjoyed the little Christmas carol that David and I did for you. And if you'd like any more requests, you're welcome to send them through. And well, we'll try our absolute best at whistling them because I cannot sing I'd like to sing, but I cannot sing very well at all. James will probably do better. I can just... What instrument did James say that I could play yesterday? We were talking about starting a band last night, and then I obviously jumped into the conversation like I normally do, and I asked James what instrument I could play. Oh, he said the trumpet. I think he said I could play the trumpet, but I'm not very musical, unfortunately, and well, it probably wouldn't sound very nice. I think VM would be a better option to do the trumpet, seeing as though he could do a mouth trumpet. One sounds very much like a real one. Now, oh, Herbie's calling us. Standing by, Herbert. We'll listen to. Negative so far, but I'll keep an eye out for you, and I'll let you know. Okay, copy. I'll keep an eye out. I'll drive slowly. So Herbie's just said that they're on Vulture's Nest, so they're just on the other side. And he says there were some elephant footprints crossing east, so we should probably keep an eye out over here. We'll have a little look around here. This is the best question of the whole morning. Thank you, Kevin. You're wanting to know if animals celebrate Christmas. I'm not sure, but I reckon you should get a couple of dung beetle sized hats made, and I think a dung beetle with a little Christmas hat on. Christmas. I think they just carry on like normal. I don't think they know any different. Maybe they just hear the horrid sounds of us all attempting to sing Christmas carols. I know probably dogs and cats that you have at home would maybe celebrate Christmas, that they're intelligent enough to realize that we repeat things over and over. So I'm also losing my concentration location because I'm trying to find these elephants. I'm just desperate for any animals, anything. Please come out. I'm so sad. All right, I'm about to go into a very dodgy section. Let's very quickly go back across to Brent and Mr. Mfumo.
As you can see, not much movement here on the big cat front. Mr. Mfumo is very much a flat cat. As I say, I don't think he's going to move too much today. I think he's found his spot where he's going to rest up. Now, he's definitely the one we see the most on Djuma. Him and Tinyo, the tooth. Nana and Unsoko, we don't see nearly as often. Oh, there we go. Head up. And head down. Oh, that was a very gentle letdown for a lion. They are so good at sleeping, even on a cool day where he could possibly be moving. I think he has moved quite a big distance overnight. Now, a lot of cats have retractable claws, and Corey in Massachusetts was wondering about that. And how does it work? Well, Corey, you are in luck, because I indeed know how it works. Where do the claws go and what happens? So, fortunately for you, Corey, I have a lovely little diagram. So there we go. So it's basically two little ligaments. And you can see there. So they are named C. And you can see, so there's an extended claw. And there's a retracted claw. So you can see there's that little ligament that's named C. That pulls tight and the claws go in. I mean, sorry, that loosens and the claws go in. And they just slide into a little sheath. And then when that is extended or stretched, the claws come out. And you can see how the bottom shape of the pad changes when it does happen. So there we go. So when the ligament's at rest, the claws are inside. When the ligament is in use and stretched, the claws are outside, or extended rather than stretched. So that's Corey. Hopefully that helps you with how a lion or even your domestic cat at home's claws work. Now, at the moment, Mr. Mfumo's claws will be definitely retracted, so inside. Oh, there's a very noisy African cuckoo calling there. Cuckoo. Now, if we have a look at his nose, there we go. Oh. Sorry, I just got to be on the game drive. My tracks of this animal come from Twin Dams, then to Tayla, and then northeast from there. So we can see that new wound just below his eye. Can you zoom in on it a little bit more there, please, Rian? You can see the flies already on the wound. There we go. Now that's how the problems start when they lay their eggs. Hi, Lael. in Washington, Lale wants to know, will the maggots be good for cleaning up the wound? Oh, it all depends. Sometimes they can be quite bad. They do cause infection depending on the species. But yes, sometimes the maggots can eat away the rotten flesh, which helps with infection. But there are certain maggot species as well that will eat living flesh. And those are the ones that are not so good to have in your face. Or actually any part of your body. Now it's amazing how these cats can go from almost exactly flat to the ground, and the slightest noise or smell or something that stimulates them can send them leaping into action, and from 0 to 60 in no time. We're going to sit here with Mr. Mfumo. I'm hoping, because of this cool drizzly weather, he might give us a roar. I don't think so, though. It's very much wishful thinking. But it sounds like Tayla has got some acting to do for you. I'm quite interested to see what it is.
Right, I'm up on a tree. I need to come down before I show you why, because I have to move the vehicle very quickly. So let's move the vehicle and then we'll try again. Just quickly do some exercises. Okay, let me move off the road and we'll try this again. There's just a vehicle that's behind us, and well, I decided to park in the middle of the road, so we'll let them go past very quickly. David, we're gonna have to do the whole thing again. We'll let them come past us. Now we wait for them to come past us. Then I shall reverse back to exactly where we are, and we will start the entire thing again. Hello! They're looking at me like I'm a bit weird. It's not the first time I've had that look though in my life. It's fine. Right. David, is that fine? Right, let's try this again. Now you're going to see the reenactment. Okay. Up we go again. Now, we have to go up the tree. I'm already unbalanced and I'm not even up it yet. No, I'm just joking. It's not so bad. It's a bit windy up here. You'd think I would have been better at balancing. Apparently I'm not. Now, if you didn't watch yesterday afternoon on the sunset safari, this is what Karula was doing. Not Karula. What am I talking about? I mean, she's so Shadow. I don't know. I obviously didn't wake up, but Shadow was beautifully standing up, and it's actually quite amazing what you can see from up here. I can definitely see a lot more. Now, there's actually something that I want to show you. Boom! Over here. Exhibit A. Can you see how this marula tree has been rubbed? I'm going to pick up a little piece. And it looks like, it's not very high, you can see it's sort of a couple of feet off the ground, not very much though. It looks as though something like a buffalo, I think it would be a buffalo, has come through here, has actually come up with his horns and gone much harder though, of course, and covered his horns nicely, maybe sharpened the tip of them. You always see they always put like a little bit of decoration on the top of their horns. It's quite nice. Normally they do it with the timberti trees, but a marula tree unfortunately does not quite have the same effect. And it's not very fresh. From over there it was quite deceiving. It actually looked like it had probably just been done, but it hasn't. David, have a feel. Dry.
Very dry.
Not very moist, and you know that when you open up a marula tree there is quite a bit of moisture in there as well. So when this would have happened, this would have been quite wet and quite fresh, and that's how you know, well, it would have been fresh. But sadly it's not fresh, and well, this probably happened quite some time ago. So we'll get rid of that. Sorry David, I made the vehicle dirty, and we will jump back in and see what else is digging around here. What have we got here? We've got lots of ants. I don't know if you can see the ants, David. They are running around here. Can you see them? Tiny little black ants. I have no idea what type of ant they are. they're carrying a couple of them down here, which I think will be a little bit difficult for you to see, are carrying a bit of building material. But this is a termite mound that they're on. So maybe they've got their nest somewhere else. Maybe they're coming through to raid to see if they can pick up on anything. Maybe scraps of food. But no termites. Just a couple of ants. Wonder where their nest is. No, not around here. They've obviously travelled a far distance to get here. Right, up we go. Let's plug myself back in. Haha. There we go. Now. Right. We're going to carry on like we've been doing the entire morning, looking for all these fascinating creatures. But I think James has got one of the slower creatures that move around in the bush.
It is very soporific watching a snail move, everyone. It makes one go to sleep. But I've woken now. I was going to do some astounding sort of speech on how dangerous it was for Brian to be where he is. And that cracking of branches you may have heard just behind us was Herbert falling off a tree. He's okay, don't worry. What I think this most marvellous thing about the snail is, of course, we've spoken extensively over the last few days about the eye stalks and the little sensory antenna that come out of its mouth. But what is astounding about it to me is its mouth parts. Now, what it uses to eat is something called a radula. And it's just sort of beyond those sort of prehensile lips of it that it has. And a radula is used to eat things like it's walking over now, that sort of dead plant material. And it's a tongue with teeth on it. It's a little bit like a chainsaw, so it moves around and around, and those teeth, as the tongue moves round and round, take off bits and pieces that it wants to eat. And then it swallows them, obviously, and does what snails do with the rest of it, digests it and gets rid of it out the other end. But it is quite an astounding arrangement. So if you think of a chainsaw, or a chain with teeth on it, moving on a sort of conveyor, continuous conveyor belt, that's what the radula looks like. Now, Brian is going to reposition because the snail has moved so very far and so very fast. So he's going to come round to this end. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Well done. Oh! The reason I exclaimed profoundly there was that we're not alone here with a giant land snail. Remember I said to you earlier on, everywhere you stop there's a whole lot of stuff going on. I will bring into picture for you what made me exclaim slightly there. Did you see that, Brian?
Okay.
Isn't that amazing? It is a grasshopper of some sort. It is green, and that's all I can tell you about it. I can also probably tell you vaguely its age. It's an adult because it has wings. The youngsters or the hoppers do not have wings. And I don't know if you've been watching that Planet Earth 2 series. I'm not sure if it's come out where you happen to be in the world. But the desert episode, which I think is episode 4, talks about these swarms of animals, and they become locusts when they swarm, and it's when they are in this stage, this adult stage with wings, that they become quite so terrifying. Go and have a look. If you haven't seen it, really go and have a look at it. It's quite astounding what a locust or a grasshopper becomes if given half a chance. Right, back on. Oh, we've got another one here. We'll move on to the snail again, who seems to have taken exception to the grasshopper and is now moving towards him at a terrifying rate. Brian, this could be the greatest action Safari Live has ever witnessed. Forget Tingana pulling a warthog out of its burrow. Oh, here we go. Forget Karula's babies. Forget the Birmingham boys fighting, or the Nkuhumas killing a buffalo. We're about to see contact between a snail and a grasshopper. They've made contact. The grasshopper pretending to be dead. The snail putting its tongue, at least its eye, back into its socket telescopically, now wrapping it over the top of the grasshopper. What is going to happen here, Brian? I can barely breathe. Nothing. The snail has decided that the grasshopper is inedible and is therefore moving on over some bare and slightly stony ground recently moistened by the rain of a few days ago. Marvellous. Go, snail, go. And I'm sure you were all very nervous by what we just witnessed there, the possible conflict between, well, mollusk and insect. But in this case, something of a damp squib. Not much of a fight at all. The grasshopper still pretending to be grass at this stage. Well, Maria, yes, indeed. Perhaps you're talking to us from gay Paris. You say, are these snails able to be eaten? Well, absolutely. Ooh, it's rounding on the grasshopper again. Marie, they are edible, and some local people eat them here. I think much like sort of your garden variety French escargot, they taste like whatever you cook them in, with the consistency of snot. So I think that's probably what they are like, but they're certainly edible. And they're quite long-lived too, you know. They live for about 10 years. Really very special. And they lay on, I mean, if you think about how they grow, they lay on an astounding, or they lay on the layers in an astounding fashion, and the spiral. I mean, they start off as very minute animals, and slowly the spiral of the shell expands and expands as the body expands within it. And I think it was Jamie using the term the Fibonacci spiral the other day. Chris, you say that you think I am sensationalizing the sighting. Chris, I don't know why on earth you'd say that. Brian, do you think I'm sensationalizing the sighting? I mean, Chris, we're witnessing something quite astounding here. Yes, Chris, I am completely sensationalizing the sighting. I quite enjoy doing that with an animal like this because it is obviously so deeply slow moving. Isn't it amazing, though? Those telescopic eyes, and by telescopic I mean they fold in on themselves, so that eye stalk will fold completely in, just like an antenna on an old TV set or radio, and then kind of unfold itself. No, Brian, they cannot. You say, can snails live without the shell? Definitely not, Brian. They need that shell to stop them drying out, to protect them from predators. And what they do in the wintertime, or any time it's dry, they'll fold up into the shell, they'll cover themselves in, well, pretty much the sand that this one is crawling on now, which stops the water evaporating and desiccating them. But they have to have that shell to survive. Without it, they wouldn't get close to surviving, I'm afraid. So by desiccating, of course, I mean drying out. Fascinating, fascinating stuff. How an animal like this doesn't get eaten by every passing bird, I just cannot imagine. It has no way to defend itself. And I mean, the shell, while it's okay against perhaps a sparrow or something like that, which wouldn't eat one anyway, I mean, any bird that really wanted to eat it would just have to peck once or twice and it would crack open. So maybe they've got something in them that's slightly toxic to birds. But for a snail to have got this old without being eaten, I just think is absolutely astounding. Whether it's actually eating anything now or just exploring, I don't know. Alrighty, let's move on from our giant land snail. We gave up on the elephants, I'm afraid. They were still walking in single file in an easterly direction, so I think almost impossible to try and catch them at this stage. Brent Smith is not too far from us. He's up sort of to the north behind me, where in the direction my feet are pointing, and he is still with the Flat Cat Authority.
And flat indeed is the cat. Mr. Mfumo has not moved a muscle. He has not even lifted his ears or lifted his head. And it is always wonderful. Oh, there we go. He moved ever so slightly, but it was an inch of movement. I was hoping he might get up, might do something before the end of the safari. It doesn't look like it, but at least we know where he is. I'm just waiting for Mike to get here. I don't think he'll find him without our help, so we're just standing by till he gets a bit closer, and then we'll see if we can find some other fascinating thing before the end of this safari. Now, Majid's wondering, how long can lions survive without water? Majid, they actually are not water dependent. They can survive their whole lives without water as long as they kill enough, and they'll get their moisture from the blood that they consume. But normally, it's much better to drink water, and if water's available, lions will drink. That's a very tired kitty. I can see that wound. It'll be interesting to see if that one's also full of maggots already, or is it just swelling and it'll go down without too much fuss. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Mike, confirming, have you found those tracks yet? Seems like young Michael is lost. Starwish says that he's dreaming of herds of wildebeest and lionesses. The lion, of course, not young Michael from Cheetah Plains. And he does look like he might be dreaming a little bit. There we go, a little ear flick. That's to keep the biting flies at bay. But hopefully he'll be up and at 'em on the sunset safari. Now, speaking of young Michael, I'm going to try help him get in here. And we're going to leave this boy sleeping. I don't think he's going to move an inch today. So we're going to say goodbye to Mfumo. And we'll see you on the sunset safari, Mr. Lion. So while we move out of this area and hopefully find some other fascinating creatures, let's go see what Tayla's up to.
We are in the Mulwati, driving around looking for anything that wants to be seen. David, are you ready to go under the archway?
Right, we're live. Leo Smith is just up here, and I've actually just found you quite an interesting grass. I say quite interesting. It's not the most astounding grass in the world, but it does have quite an interesting defensive mechanism. It's called Eragrostis gummiflua. Now, gummiflua doesn't make reference to its desirability to gummy bears. No, rather to the gummy nature of the nodes. So it's very sticky there. Now, if you watch very carefully on my fingers, you may see a little bit of glue coming off. Can you see that at all, Brian? Not really. Let's try another one. Let's try it on here. There we go. See that? Mm-hmm. Now, this Eragrostis gummiflua grows in a sort of ecotone or seepline areas. I lost my words there for a second. And we think what this protects the plant from is ants getting up here and eating the seeds. So the seeds are probably wind dispersed. They're very, very small seeds and probably very desirable to ants. And so an ant would climb up this grass stalk like this, grab one of the, or try to get stuck on the gum, and then probably turn around and come back. So we think that's why they have these sort of completely unique adaptation. Cool. Eragrastus gummy flua. The other thing I have in my hand, a rather bedraggled looking lilac-breasted roller feather. Do you see it spinning? Are you becoming hypnotized? Mary, you say, do we have any wild roses here? No, we don't. I don't know where roses come from, Mary. I would love to know. Roses are some of my most favourite flowers. Of course, my mother loves to grow roses, or she used to. I'm just going to give this to Herbert. He seemed quite interested in it. You can touch the... Herbie's just having a snack of white berries there. Mary, roses, yeah, we don't have wild roses here at all, and I'd love to know, maybe you can do some research for me on account of the fact that, well, I don't have the internet with me right now. Where do they come from? What is their origin? I'm going to assume that it's somewhere around the Middle East that they come from, but they don't grow around here wild, no. They grow very well in South Africa, up on the Highveld, where there's quite a lot of rain and it gets cold in winter. In Bloemfontein and Johannesburg specifically, I know they grow really well. And my poor mother, I'm afraid, only got 4 roses at the moment. She lives at the coast where the wind blows and it never gets very cold, and roses don't like that very much. That is all I have to say about roses. Brian, do you have anything to say about roses? No. And then the other thing I did want to share with you, on account of the fact that Tayla had been talking about how she's missing, and I quote here, I think, the Christmas songs from malls. Now, I don't know about you, but I find the Christmas songs that they play in malls almost universally offensive. The Boney M's Christmas should have been consigned to the scrap heap of history in 1978 when it came out. The jazzed up or sold up versions of things like Jingle Bells, also scrap heap of history. Along with along with the perm. We don't do perm. Nobody perms their hair anymore, for good reason. We just don't do that anymore. It's not done. And those sorts of things, I think, should disappear along with the scrap heap. Watch out, Brian. Phew. We made it. I think it is. I think we managed to get around it without disturbing it. Phew. Anyway, yes, so I don't miss the Christmas thing from the malls. I do miss, I guess, getting into the Christmas spirit before it happens. But on account of that, we've been playing lots of Christmas songs in camp. Christmas songs that are, well, I just think a little bit more Christmassy than Boney M. Horrible, horrible stuff. Okay, let's carry on. Let's try and find something of biological note to show you or tell you before I get too into my irritated rant on the general state of Christmas music. Right, Josh, I thought I saw a flower here that we hadn't shown you today, but I didn't. Josh, you want to know about the... Careful, Josh. Josh, you want to know about the TV safaris and when they're going to begin? I can indeed tell you when they're going to begin. They are going to begin on the very first day of the year, if you happen to live in America, which of course you'll have to be if you're watching the TV show, at 10 o'clock in the evening Eastern Standard Time. So that will be on the 1st, Sunday the 1st of January 2017. That's what I said, 2017. At 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, that's in the evening. It'll be for 2 hours, and every Sunday for 8 weeks thereafter. which is very exciting for all of us. And to those of you who don't live in the Americas, well, you'll just be able to watch it on the internet for free. Hello, you rather special fellow. This is a rain locust, also known as, in fact it's not a rain locust, it's one of those crested locusts. Isn't he fantastic? And he's looking me in the eye. Brian, I imagine your picture there is quite amazing. And I think, if I was to guess, I would say this is probably a female on account of her size and on account of the fact that she's got quite a long back end, which I think is probably used to deposit eggs. She's being passed by now by a drop-tailed ant. And the sound of Brent Leo Smith being amusing by pretending to run me over is now deeply in my ears. Hello, Brent.
Hi, James.
Brent saying hello, everybody. We're looking at a locust, Brent.
The bladder hopper.
A bladder hopper. I thought it was a crested locust.
I'm looking at it from quite far.
Yes, you are looking at it from quite far, but maybe they are synonymous with each other. He's moving, Brian. Be very careful. I think I should try and take a picture of him. Look how he's trying to move slowly without Brian noticing him. All right, let's take a picture. Brian, do you think he's going to fly? Shall I slow-mo him? I don't think he can fly, he hasn't any wings.
Try to hop away.
Come. Hop. Hop. I'm filming you in slow motion. Hop. Hop. No, won't hop. Just, okay, now what's quite interesting here, apart from being completely ridiculous, that movement it's doing, that kind of swaying motion, that's really very interesting, because what it does is that it seems to be some kind of a movement like a leaf. Chameleons do it as well, and I think it's some kind of distractor to predators. So when it turns around like that and sways like a leaf blowing in the wind, I think it's possible that it tells, might confuse the odd predator. And interestingly, that something like a chameleon, which is of course a vertebrate, adopts the same strategy. Isn't that amazing? Not related at all. An example of perhaps convergent evolution. Where two animals completely unrelated to each other have evolved the same strategy to either take advantage of some sort of niche or, in this case, avoid predation. Cool. Bobbing its head up and down. Very, very cool. Brian, drop us a beat. Here goes the grasshopper on the end. It's going to have its breakfast now, and so are we. We're going to say goodbye to you and hand you to the Brent, and we will see you in the afternoon just now. Bye-bye.
Now, for our closing, I've actually discussed with Final Control, and because James is going to be on leave for Christmas, we want you to help us give James a Christmas present. James, come here. Come hither. So what we want you to do is on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook is tag James Henry in every Boney M Christmas song. That is what we want to do for James Henry at Christmas. So that is what we want to do, because he's not going to be with us here in the bush. We want you to tag James Henry in every Boney M Christmas song, and remember to also put the hashtag Safari Live, and I will sit in the bush during Christmas and actually have a wonderful laugh. I almost wish we could have a camera to see James as he logs on to his Facebook.
Social media.
But anyway, we're going to say goodbye. I think we might offer the bushwalk chaps a lift home. And while we give them a lift home, let's go back to Tayla so she can say goodbye and close off the show.
Bye.
I thought that we better pop past the Hadeda Nest to see how the little chicks are doing. And it seems as though there's only one chick up in that big nest. I went the other way around and I had a look, and I couldn't quite see them. Now, I want to show you something while this little... Oh, no, there's the second one. There's another one there, squashed underneath its sibling. Maybe all three are around. But if you have a look on its face, can you see that there's a tiny little white streak on its cheek? And I'm sure you can faintly see that. Now, this is quite exciting. I think that these chicks are older than what we think, because I've read that they only get that white streak on their cheek when they get to about 25 and 27 days old. So these guys, you can see they're fully feathered now. They must be almost ready to fledge. I reckon in probably the next week or so, they're going to take some dives down and start working their way down to the floor where they'll hop around, but they'll still be fed by the adults. But I think it's lovely. I hope all three are there. I can just see the two. I was a bit worried earlier. And you'll be surprised, Hadedas actually have quite a good success rate at raising their chicks. I believe that the statistic is on about 73% for the success rate of Hadeda chicks, which is wonderful. But they can, of course, the little ones can die of starvation, and it is also quite common for the chicks to get a little bit too brave and then sort of fall out of the nest. I remember as a young girl, and I've told the Hadeda story before, when my best friend's mother found the Hadeda chick on the ground, but I found many little chicks, from weavers to barbets and all sorts of things. I think the barbets were the most recent one, the chicks that we found out on the ground. Sadly, we're down to the final seconds of the show, but it's been absolutely wonderful, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember, we'll be back on air again this afternoon for the Sunset Safari, so thank you to everybody behind the scenes, all the lovely ladies in Final Control, sipping away on their nice coffee in their air-conditioned room. But we get it better out here. We get to see everything. But we will, like I said, we'll see you a little bit later from myself and David. Have a wonderful afternoon and morning. We'll catch you a little bit later.